Hi everyone, welcome to my presentation on my multi-generational case study house. This is phase 2 of a multi-phase package that began with phase 1, which was a community hub, which started 6 weeks ago. I'm going to begin with a brief discussion on some of the background research I've done, and then I'm going to go on to talk about my design in greater detail and some of the work I've done with my drawings and diagrams. Starting out with my research, I was pretty unsure how to approach this typology selection. So I spent some time looking at single and multi-family housing. Following on from my hub's design, I also had some ideas that I wanted to explore regarding public and private space, flexibility, sharing, and gathering and openness and accessibility. I then started to develop both a functional and aspirational brief based on some of these concepts, with the key elements revolving around these ideas of togetherness, sharing, public and private space, and flexibility. With these ideas in mind, I began to research how a variety of different architects have approached both single family and multifamily and apartment buildings. By researching and diagramming these buildings, key elements started to become clear to me regarding the hierarchy of spaces, the importance of gathering points for family, and how typological configurations influence the relationship between public and private space and individual family members. The flexibility of spaces became a key component to many of these buildings. Following on from this introductory research, it became pretty apparent that multi-generational housing was the most suitable typology for my case study house. It's really continued on from the key notion of sharing from my community hub. Looking at multi-generational precedents, I began to notice the separation of residences through public space, not only indoor space, but also outdoor. And from knowing how fluid a multi-generational family can be, it was really key to the success of these designs how flexible spaces within the layouts are. Taking these elements learned from precedent research, I began to synthesize the information into diagrammatic drawings that began to form an idea of how these spaces may relate to one another, and then taking these diagrams a step further to a rough layout of the plan to better understand the relationship between these spaces. I really started to hone in on these key areas, and through an iterative process, designed a multi-generational home that celebrates both separate families and the key notion of sharing between them and how this relates within the wider community beyond the home. I think my final plan has ensured that while it's a house for multiple families, it also appreciates that it's a house for one large family and celebrates this coming together and sharing of multiple generations. I've really tried to emphasize this public and private space, the transitions between indoor and outdoor, and this duality of single and pluralistic value throughout the design. I've tried to represent this idea of sharing and celebrating multiple generations through my section and convey the importance of the wider community at large through my perspectives, and how the decay of community is detrimental to society. My final panels have really tried to showcase this journey from initial research to concept development to a schematic proposal for a multi-generational case study house that celebrates the uniqueness of multiple families living under one roof, but also appreciates the realities of modern life and the importance of privacy within it. With my final model, I was really trying to capture the essence of public and private spaces within my design. I opted to only use a single material to really drive home the importance of this juxtaposition between shared and private space, By removing any glazing, the transition and transparency between public spaces becomes more obvious and the private spaces more intimate. I really appreciate you taking the time to hear about my design. Thanks so much.